This is UNCHARTED, a series of candid conversations about facing uncertainty. When we are called upon to be courageous, the strength of our leadership is tested. Red Direction has developed the Fast Track Your Business program to help you stay aligned to your business's true north. Jess Dewell is your guide. Jess brings you a 20-year track record of business excellence where strategy and operations overlap. Your path comes from consistently working from this special place, your unique true north. Now, here's Jess.
Welcome back, everybody. This is the Bold Business Podcast. I'm your host, Jess Dewell. And guess what? I know every single one of you, if you haven't thought about it, you will be thinking about it. And it's, when do I sell my business? What do I sell my business for? And can it actually help me get to the goals that I want outside of, can it help me reach my bigger life goals? And guess what? It can. Michelle Seiler Tucker is here with me today. She is the CEO and founder of Seiler Tucker Incorporated. She is an international M&A, mergers and acquisitions, transaction company. She's worked with thousands of companies to prepare, to sell, and to transition out of one ownership team into another ownership team. All right, let me see. Oh, and she holds the M&A-MI, which is different than just M&A stuff, people. It is mergers and acquisitions master intermediary. She's also certified at mergers and acquisitions as a professional. It comes with the designation CM and AP. She's also a certified senior business analyst, a CSBA, and her firm is going strong. It is growing. And like I already said, internationally, Michelle is representing buyers and sellers to make sure that they're well valued, that the transition is what happens. And she's going to give us some of the dirt on the inside from companies. I say dirt in a very good, positive way, because we want the goods. And not only that, she's going to be sharing this experience with us specifically around some of the things and the experiences that she's had, so that on this Uncharted, you're going to walk away with information that you know is going to help you solve the problems that you are working on right now. Michelle, welcome to the Bold Business Podcast. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. For those of you listening, you don't get to see this cool background she has. It says Exit Rich, which is the title of her book. So not only did I forgot to say she's an author. Michelle, I forgot to say you're an author too.
That's okay.
What made you decide to write a book?
Well, I've written 3 books.
Yeah.
And I think what really got me started, I've always written as a little girl. I write poems, I write lyrics, I write short stories. What got me into writing books about selling your business is about 20 years ago when I entered this industry, I realized very quickly that what Steve Forbes says is true. 8 out of 10 businesses won't sell. So 80% of the companies up for sale will never sell. So that's why I wrote my first book in 2013, which was called Sell Your Business for More Than It's Worth. And my book that's coming out right now, which is called Exit Rich.
And, one of the things that we do on Uncharted is we talk about the experiences where there was some sort of a challenge. And I know that selling a business is not easy. I've done it. You've done it way more than I have. And I think about this, and I think about, the trials and the tribulations. And then I think about doing it again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not only am I gripped with fear, I'm like, is the same thing going to happen again? How many transactions out of the thousands have you done have been by the book?
None of them have been by the book.
So we don't even have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about having something go by the book, because apparently we think there's a book, but there's no book.
Well, there's a book called Exit Rich.
I love that.
And if they read it, if they build their business, it's actually sellable, then it'll be a lot smoother transition, and they'll be able to maximize the price of their business.
What's the biggest obstacle that you see business owners when they're coming to you to start their process, or they're saying, I'm ready right now, here we go, and they show up with something that's less than ideal? What are those obstacles that you find, like the biggest one or two?
Sure. There's so many, but the biggest one, the reason why 80% of businesses don't sell is because business owners don't think about selling. They haven't planned for their exit, for the sale of their business. They don't think about it until a catastrophic event occurs. And that could be internal, which is health issues, partner dispute, divorce, death,
Mhm.
or this pandemic that we're in. That's the worst time to sell your business is when you're in a catastrophic event. You really need to plan your exit. Now, listen to this because I know this sounds strange to everybody, but you must plan your exit from the beginning.
You
You
know,
must plan your exit from the beginning. It's called the STGPS exit model. And the reason for that is because you want, business owners think about their business as their baby.
it's true.
And they never
Sometimes,
really
yeah.
plan for it or grow it like the valuable asset that it is. And your business can be your biggest retirement fund. I mean, you could sell your business for millions if you grow $1 million company, a multi-million dollar company. So the GPS exit model is all about determining your end game from your starting a business or buying a business. And it's kind of like, Jess, when you drive somewhere, what's the first thing you do? You pull out your phone, you go to Google Maps, and you plug in your destination, right?
Yep.
So business owners don't have a destination. They're driving around in circles, going up and down the financial hills, and most of them will end up broke. Most of them will end up selling for pennies on the dollar. They'll end up going out of business or end up filing bankruptcy. In 2013, when I wrote Sell Your Business for What It's Worth and did the research, 95% of startups were going out of business. 95%. When I wrote Exit Rich, I realized that the business landscape has changed dramatically. Now, only 30% of startups go out of business. But out of 27.6 million companies, those businesses have been in business 10 years or longer. 70% of those businesses are going out of business. 70%. You hear
Right.
about the big box companies like Toys R Us, been in business 75 years, goes out of business. Kmart, Montgomery Ward, J.C. Penney's, Godiva Chocolate closing down 1,500 locations. And the main reason for that is because business owners stop doing what I call AIM, AIM. AIM is always innovate and market. They stop innovating, they stop marketing. Toys R Us did nothing different, in 75 years. So that's why I wrote Exit Rich to begin with, is so business owners know, look, you really got to figure out your end game, number one, right?
Yeah.
Your destination. What do you want to sell your business for? Let's say you want to sell your business for $5 million or $10 million. Let's say $10 million. Jess, business owners get hung up on a number. Don't get hung up on a number. Just pick a number. You might make it, you might not, but pick a number. So let's say you want to sell for $10 million. Now, what does the GPS model need? It needs to know where you're starting from. What is your current valuation? Now, you'd be surprised how many business owners have never had their business evaluated. They don't even know what their business is worth. You must always know what your business is worth every year, because there are events that increase valuation, right?
Yep.
There are events that decrease valuation, like this pandemic we're in. So you always need to know what your business is worth. It's financial suicide not to know and not to get what I call an annual valuation checkup.
Right.
So let's say you want to sell for 10 million and you're worth $1 million. Now you need to know time frame.
Yep.
Let's say you want to do it in 10 years. You have a start of a plan. Now you have to reverse engineer it. Now you need to go, well, now you need to ask yourself, well, who are my buyers going to be? There's 5 types of buyers. Now notice I said buyers, not buyer, because you can't put all your eggs in one buyer's basket. That buyer probably will not close on the sale of your business. Plus, you will never maximize value and get the highest price if you don't have competition.
So before we continue, yes, that's true. And so before we continue, I want to know, because it's interesting. Of course, we need the destination, and we think about it when we were in a job before we started our own company. We think about it when we were starting out, not as we were climbing our business ladder and our career path and achieving more and more and more. And, to your point, I'm going to bring in a classic that complements and reinforces everything that you've said, that comes out of, Forbes, and which is Stephen Covey. Start with the end in mind. It's one of the skills that we practice about how to sell, how to connect, how to send a freaking email. Sometimes I have to tell you, that is hard for me, Michelle, is to just make sure that I'm consistent and understanding what is the purpose of me having this communication. And it sounds daunting, but you know what? When we have that destination in mind, what I understand is that we get to go forward with much more intention. That's what I'm hearing you talk about, the amount of intention that we're bringing. Now, tell me this, what's your end in mind?
Well, I have lots of different businesses.
Yeah.
So what's my end in mind for which business? All of my businesses I build to sell. So I don't just sell businesses. I build businesses to sell. I partner with business owners. I invest my money, my expertise, my resources, and I put them on a 3 to 5 year build to sell program, and I take equity in the company.
Mm-hmm.
I also buy businesses and flip them. So at any given time, I own 5 to 10 different companies in different verticals that I'm building to sell. So I'm always building to sell businesses. As far as my M&A firm, yes, I will sell that one day, probably in about 10 to 15 years when this isn't fun for me anymore. but,
Love
you
it.
know, as far as my other businesses, I'm building those to sell.
Yeah.
And I always follow my own advice. I always follow my own GPS exit model, and
Mhm.
I build them from the beginning to sell.
Okay, people, I want you to hear what Michelle just shared. She shared she does this for fun. This is great, exciting work for her. She brings incredible knowledge and she has different intentions depending on the type of investment that she is working with. However, what I hear you saying, Michelle, so even though you said you have a lot of different businesses, which I think is great, you actually are providing the service of I'm practicing the I'm practicing the principles and I know this works because I am rinse and repeat is kind of cliche, but at the same point in knowing that there's no real playbook because nothing goes by the book, but there are those elements that we can do to get started. And that's where we started talking about knowing the end in mind. What is that plan? And
Mhm.
so over 20 years ago, when you got into this industry, why did you want to be an M&A in the first place?
I never said, "Oh, I want to sell businesses." It didn't happen
You
that
didn't?
way.
I was like, now I'm
No.
curious because you are one amazingly successful person. And I'm like, did you always want to do this?
No, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I've always owned small businesses from a very young age. And I did go to work for corporate America. I went to work for Xerox for just a short period of time because I realized I didn't like it. And then I went into franchise sales, franchise consulting, franchise development, and never said, "Oh, I'm going to go into franchise sales, franchise development, franchise consulting." I was looking to at some point leave Xerox. And that's when I stumbled across a franchisor and they said, "We want you to be a partner with us." So I ended up becoming a partner with several different franchisors. And that's when I started my consulting practice. But I found myself, I kept saying no because buyers would come to me and they would want to buy an existing business. They didn't want to buy a franchise. Franchising is not for everybody. And I kept saying, no, no, no. Well, I'm all about law of attraction and I'm all about yes, 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 So I said, gosh, I need to start an M&A practice. And that's really how I started my M&A practice. I always knew I was an entrepreneur. I always knew I would own businesses.
Yeah.
I always knew I would be my own boss. I didn't wake up one day though and say I'm gonna sell companies. I
Right.
did always know I would be in some type of sales, some
Uh-huh.
type of big ticket sales.
Isn't that amazing that we know what we're drawn to? I love that you say that you're all about the yes, because
Mhm.
I bet that comes into not only that 3 to 5 year growth plan, but also the concept of the negotiation itself.
Right, right.
Right. And I actually wonder if the concept of negotiation is scarier for people than the fact that they might be selling their child. You know what I mean? It's interesting because all of our fears stem from different places, but I know that negotiation, how do I have to show up? Am I supposed to do a traditional whatever we think of sales in our traditional mind, because there are so many variations of sales out there. How did you find out that you were all about the yes?
Um, how did I find out I was all about the yes? Well, I don't like saying no. I've always been kind of a one-stop shop. If I can provide consulting, if I can provide this, if I can provide that, if I that's why I really specialize in buying, selling, fixing, growing businesses, not just selling businesses, because remember, 80% of businesses won't sell, so I'll starve to death. But I've always said I'm always about congruent revenue streams, being congruent.
Mm-hmm.
And saying yes for me is I just think you have so much more opportunity when you say yes. When you keep saying no, 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 then people stop asking, right?
Boy, isn't that the truth? That's
But
exactly
you
right.
also got to know what to say no to, because you can't say yes to everything. So there's a balance, well, some type of balance that you have to find for yourself.
Is
You
it
got
more
to
of a
know what to
dance?
say yes to. You got to know what to say no to. I mean, just like clients, um, there's a certain level of businesses I sell. There's a certain level I don't sell that I say no to. So, but my team takes those. So you really got to know what works for you, and it's got to align with your values and your goals.
What's one of your biggest values that guides you toward that being about the yes?
I would say intuition. I'm a pretty good gut girl. I
Yeah.
have a good gut. Sometimes I don't listen to my intuition. It gets me in trouble. Like every time I look at something, I'm like, you know what? If I would have just listened to my gut, I'd have
Right.
never made that decision. So
Yeah.
I think I'm a good intuition person. Um, and it's all about growth for me. It's all about growth. You're either learning or you're either dying or growing.
Right.
So for me, it's all about learning. It's all about growth. It's all about innovation. It's all about doing something different. And it's also about providing wow experiences for my clients.
Did you just say wild experiences?
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. Okay, I
W-O-W.
misunderstood.
Not wild. Not wild.
Oh,
Wow. The other W.
W-O-W. I was like,
Yeah. Wow.
I wish I had met you earlier, Michelle. Actually, for both reasons, the wow, maybe not the wild. And so, I'm thinking about Exit Rich, and I'm thinking about all of the years of experience and transactions that you're bringing to the table. And I know one of the things that's in your book that you talk about a lot is understanding what kind of business are you? And to me, there's an element of, well, I have to start with the end in mind. Don't I have to know who I am to know what my end is going to be?
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes. But yes.
exactly.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. You have to know who you are, but to start with your end in mind, and as far as picking a number, look, I want business owners to plan. Business owners don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And that's why 80%, that's why 70% of business owners are dying right now. And this was before COVID. So Exit Rich is all about getting business owners to think about their business as their asset, their most valuable asset, not their baby. And it's all about getting them to actually have an exit plan versus just thinking about selling when you're burned out or thinking about selling when, something bad happened. I mean, I had a sweet little old lady call me a couple months ago. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack, left her with a pile of debt. And she said, honey, can you sell my husband's business? I don't know what to do. And so I asked her all these questions and took her through this process. And he had a construction business. He had no employees, no people. People is the first P in the ST infrastructure, is the first P. He had no people. He had all subcontractors. He had no processes, which is the third P in the ST, 6 Ps. And he had nothing to sell because everything was in his head. When he died, the business died. So it's really imperative to get business owners to change their mindset and to really start thinking about their business as the most valuable asset and set themselves up for success. And most importantly, set your family up for success. So that doesn't happen to you,
Yeah. And that's okay. So, yes, I'm glad you talked about people because that was something else that was on my radar. And you also hit the process, getting it out of your head. And all of that, to your point of the very beginning, if we were to put an exclamation point right after one word, it would be the plan, exclamation point, the plan. And so, when I'm asking myself the question, what kind of business am I? What kind of business do I have? What does that actually mean? And why is it important?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So the reason that's so important, you asked me in the beginning, what are some of the mistakes that business owners make? One of them was not planning for their exit, not thinking about it until they have to. The second one is not really understanding their business and what type of business they have, because a lot of business owners have what I call a glorified job in which they go to work at every day versus a business that actually works for them. The business is 1,000% dependent upon the owner, then the business is not sellable, just like in the case of the construction company. So there's 7 types of different businesses. We have a quiz at Seiler Tucker Academy where your listeners can go take a quiz and figure out what kind of business owner they are or what kind of business they own. And so you have the small mom and pop business. And this business, well, let me back up a little bit. Let's say you have a photographer, one photographer,
Sure,
right?
let's do it. Okay.
That's hard to sell. You take that photographer out of the business, there is no business. you know?
It requires this photographer come back in. So
Yeah.
the pool of buyers is incredibly small.
We have a dentist. We have a dentist that just came to us and wants to sell. It's been in business for 45 years. One dentist, 3 dental hygienists. I said, I can sell your business.
Mhm.
However, you're going to have to stay for a few years. He said, I'm not staying. I said, well, then we're not selling.
Yeah.
Because the minute you leave, the clients leave. So you have to look at your
Yep.
business and ask, I call it in my book, a one woman, one man show business, meaning that the business can't operate without you because you are the talent. You are
Yes.
that business.
That's it.
If you're a consultant and you don't have any consultants under you, when that consultant leaves, the clients leave.
Yep.
Okay. So that's a one man, one woman show business. Then you have what I call small business, where it's got 2 or 3 or 4 employees, maybe a small coffee shop, maybe a small ice cream store, small dry cleaners. And that business is 100% dependent upon the owner.
Uh-huh.
And then you got a business that maybe it's a little bit bigger. It's got, 10, 15, 20 employees, been around for a while, and then all the way up into M&A businesses. So there's 7 different types that I explained in Exit Rich.
Great. So you have there's one of 7 that you
Yep.
could be. And each one has its challenges and each one has its influence on evaluation. And I
That
think
is
it's
accurate. That is correct. Because here's the deal. Even if you've been in business for decades, because one of the categories is being in business for decades and it's got employees, it has everything. However, you might be one of those businesses that have been in business for decades that stopped innovating and stopped marketing, and you're in that 70% category and are at risk of going out of business.
right. That's exactly right. And to your point, every business is reducing the amount of time today. And I would be curious from you, and I know this is probably an opinion and from having experience here and trusting that gut that you have. So my question is, well, why do companies that Fortune 500 companies, why are they publicly traded as much as 25 years less than their counterparts or than their peers 50 years ago?
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand. Repeat the question. Why
Sure.
are they
Let me see if
25
I can
years
say it differently.
behind?
The amount of time a business is in business is decreasing. You have said that.
Oh, yes,
right?
yes.
So
yes.
what is your thought? What is your theory as to why that's happening today?
Well, I've already said it. It's because business owners stopped doing what I call AIM. They stopped innovating. Toys R Us did nothing different in 75 years.
Mhm.
Toys R Us 75 years ago built the business on the grocery store concept and never really innovated, right?
Mhm.
So it's because they stopped innovating. They stopped doing things differently. The reason why startups are not going out of business now is because you've got so many young entrepreneurs, millennials, that are solving problems. They're coming out with businesses that are solution oriented and are solving
Yep.
problems. These
So there's an
businesses have been in
assumption.
business 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. They're not doing anything different. And by the way, Jess, the way the consumers do business, the way the consumers purchase products and services has changed. And it will
Agreed.
continue
And
to
let's
change.
look at I'm going to share 2 companies that I think are really important here. The first is Colgate. When I say Colgate, what do you think of?
Toothpaste.
Right. When they started out, they were a soap and cologne company. They figured out what was changing with time and they stayed true to, I don't know if you want to call it hygiene or if you want to call it making us feel good about ourselves, whatever that is, right? That appearance piece, that presentation piece, they stayed true to that vision and they've adapted over time. Candles to fragrance to toothpaste.
Right.
How about Nintendo?
Because they knew where the demand was, right?
Well, that's right. They're watching. And so they might not
yeah.
necessarily be innovating, but they're watching so that they
Right.
know that it's time to innovate, right? I mean, I think
Right.
we don't have to be innovative to be successful. I think we have to watch the trends so we know when to innovate. That would be that.
I think you have to do both.
Well, I think it would depend on the leadership of the company. I think both are incredibly viable. And so the other company I wanted to talk about was Nintendo. Nintendo has been around for centuries. They're over 100 years. Actually, Colgate is too. Colgate's like around 100. Nintendo's over 100.
Mhm.
Their mission, their vision is to bring multi-generational people together and engage.
Mhm.
They've done that. They started before there was a computer. Some people that are listening to the
And
show, like, what do you mean?
they continue to innovate, right?
They
Nintendo
continue to understand and adapt. Well, and here's the thing, Nintendo does not really, if you were to look at Nintendo compared to Microsoft Xbox, I think there's a very big difference in the two companies and the way the graphics are and the way the things are. But I also think their missions are incredibly different. Their visions and what they're trying to achieve in the world is incredibly different. So even though Microsoft Xbox competes with Nintendo, they don't necessarily have to be direct competitors. And I'm going to go back to your point about know what kind of business you have, because then you know who to be comparing yourself to as well as part of your plan to move forward. Is that true? Is there something I'm missing in that?
No, I think that's very important. But you know, a lot of business owners think you need to learn from in your own industry. And I always say yes. However, you need to go outside your industry and you need to learn from the world leaders, you know, the business leaders like Disney. You know, Disney is a great example of a company to learn from. So is Apple, you know, so is Amazon.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
So is Amazon. Yeah. Kentucky Fried Chicken. They're not in the top 10 as far as.
Well, but he's not, but he failed a lot. That's the thing. He failed a lot and then still look what happened. So no, while he's not in the top 10, I still think, right? Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
So,
who else is on your list?
I think you should always learn from somebody else. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, oh, good. You don't have to answer that part.
Okay. Always
learn from something else. I interrupted you saying that. So I wanted you to be able to.
Always learn from other industries.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think that's one.
Tell me if these industries have courses. A lot of these businesses, like Ritz-Carlton, has courses you can take.
Yeah.
Disney has courses you can take. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can go and learn from other industries so that you can innovate and become a leader in yours. I mean, Steve Jobs, you know, talk about innovation. When he came back to Apple, Apple was on the brinks of going out of business. And Steve Jobs came in and he was preeminent and he innovated. He's like, what business are we in? You know, these are three questions I always tell my business owners to ask themselves, you know, is number one is, what business are you in? And Amazon did this back in the 90s. They asked themselves what business we're in. And they said, we're in the book selling business. We sell books. Second question is, what do we do better than everybody else? What's our core competency? You know, you got to figure that out. What's your USP, your unique selling proposition? And Amazon said, we're the best at fulfillment. We do fulfillment better than anyone. And then the third most important question is, what business should we be in? And Amazon said we should be in a fulfillment business. We shouldn't just be fulfilling books. We should be fulfilling everything. Those three questions is what took Amazon from a small bookseller to a multi-billion-dollar worldwide conglomerate that they are today.
Wow. You heard it here. Listen to all of the knowledge that Michelle is bringing to the table today. We're going to continue our conversation in a moment. I want to say that the next part of the conversation is for Fast Track Your Business subscribers. This entire interview from beginning to end will be uncut in your True North dashboard. So pull this up in your private podcast feed, watch or listen or read right from the website. Don't forget, everybody, how you work on your business often means the difference between failure and success. Intentionally keep moving your business in the right direction, authentically, pragmatically, and resiliently. You owe it to your business.
Chart your own course by taking advantage of the Fast Track Your Business program. A vast set of resources and exclusive access to Jess. Visit fasttrackyourbusinesstoday.com. Your preparedness and the right perspective is absolutely necessary when you find yourself somewhere uncharted. Special thanks to the Scott Treatment for technical production.